Hello, everyone. Welcome to Meet Our Mentors. This week we have Michael and Valerie Nelson. Stick around. Hello, Michael and Valerie Nelson. Welcome to Meet Our Mentors. You guys are like an hour down the road from me. I don't know why we aren't just doing this all in the same room, but here we are. How you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Yeah, we've been super busy, having a lot of fun teaching and less performing than we used to, but having fun.
Excellent. So why puppets? Is that to springboard to serious theater, or is it really just, no, I'm kidding. But seriously, what did get you guys started in puppetry?
We have a couple of stories, but probably the most straightforward one is I was helping in a Montessori school, and the Christmas party's coming up, and Michael decided to build a puppet show for the Christmas party. And so we mounted a show and performed it and had so much fun. The kids were laughing so hard they were falling out of their chairs, and we thought, that's what happened. We should be doing this.
So, and I'll tell a little story about that first show that puppeteers may find familiar, or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're all smarter than I was. But I was at that time. I was a cabinet maker and a furniture maker, and so I had all this great wood in my workshop that was available to me. So we actually built. Our first show was a marionette show with a raised stage and a bridge, and it even had a hand puppet proscenium above the main, a smaller hand puppet proscenium above the main stage below. This is because we had no idea what we were doing.
This is making my back hurt just hearing this story right now.
So here's what I learned, and what you've already anticipated, which is, as a cabinet maker, you make a cabinet, you move it once, you install it, and you're done with it. I used 3/4-inch hardwood that I had, just hanging around the shop, and I built a stage that weighed hundreds of pounds. I mean, it was disassembled, but I learned that was one of those very first lessons, is that you're going to be moving this more than once.
And it filled our living room of our upstairs apartment that we shared.
Of course.
Walk up, and I do remember the steps went up, and then we had a landing and turn and go up again. Turn and head up.
Yeah.
That's the first time I realized I needed health insurance. I was probably 22 years old and working for Richard Bay at the time. And I picked up one of his gigantic heavy stages and twisted. And I was like, oh yeah, I've never felt that happen in my back before. And the second thought was, and I don't have health insurance. I should probably get some of that. How long did it take you to put that first show together? I mean, so it was a December show because it was for the holidays. Like, what was it? Like 2 weeks, 3 months? Like, what was the...
Well, that's the mists of time.
Your best guess.
And also to a period where I probably, in terms of puppetry, was not thinking that there was any reason I would need to remember this. But I think so. What happened was I got carpal tunnel syndrome in the fall, and
yes.
Said I had to stop working, and I've never been the kind of person that could not work. So while I was not working, it's when I decided to build this show. So it probably was a couple of months. I mean, it was probably a pretty big build. Yeah. It had a whole bunch of marionettes, which I'd never made before.
But we kind of lucked into a brilliant idea for total newbies, which is we had the story plot line was these puppets were going to put on a show. They were going to put on the night before Christmas, and everything goes wrong. So built in, we had an alibi for anything we screwed up.
I've got to build that into every single one of my shows.
It really was not that we had any brilliance going on, but it was a brilliant concept.
And how in the world did you land like marionettes? I mean, I get like sock puppets or paper bag puppets as your, but like for goodness sake, marionettes. What made you think? What gave you the audacity to start with aside from being young and never having done it before? I mean, that's a lovely thing to try out for your first show.
Okay, so now we'll tell the other story, or one of the other stories, which is this one I've wondered about. But when I was through my youth, I was always a little bit nearsighted. And every time I went to the doctor, the eye doctor, they'd say, oh, you're nearsighted, but you don't need glasses. And then when I was in college, I went to renew my driver's license and I failed the eye test. So time to get glasses. So this story is going somewhere with puppets. So
here's the history of Michael's eyes. No, it's great. It's great, Michael. Go ahead.
My view of the world from the beginning. So what happened was I'm not sure why this happened, but I ended up picking up my new prescription glasses. Very first time I wore glasses in the world. And if anyone who's ever worn glasses, you put them on and all of a sudden the world looks so different and you're just amazed. You can see leaves on trees and it's like, I didn't know that this was happening for everybody else. And my girlfriend at the time and I don't know why we had decided this, but there was a long string marionette production of Pinocchio playing at a local high school and we decided to go. And so like the very first thing I saw with clarity in my life was this marionette show of Pinocchio in college. And I didn't walk out of there thinking, all right, that's what I'm going to do. No, it didn't even occur to me that I would ever do that. But I've often wondered if this like seminal moment of clarity of vision affected my going into puppets. And all right, and so one other quick story, since we've got an hour to fill here. The other element that I've wondered about is when I was a little kid, my grandmother decided it would be just charming when I came over and stayed overnight for the room I stayed in. She got a Howdy Doody nightlight. There was a little nightlight in the wall, just this head glowing.
That sounds terrifying.
It was. I was terrified of this. So my other story is I've spent my whole life trying to overcome my fear of puppets.
So really, it's been a 45-year therapy session in front of countless audiences. I get it. No, I totally get it. Yeah.
There's all the
stories,
the psychological stories there.
So you build this first show for Valerie's Montessori, and then does this you're like, oh hey, we got to do more of this. This is fun. We like the interaction with the audience. So where does that take you?
Well, we started, we did the one show and they all said, oh, we loved it. What are you going to do next? We're like, next? We don't have next. And of course they wanted a birthday party show or something. And we did the opening of a friend's health food store in which we took actual carrots and crookneck zucchinis and attached arms and legs and strings and did which was dancing fun. But it was just so much more fun than any of the other things we were doing. And so we kept doing it kind of as a hobby, as really fun. And we started I think what happened is that Letty showed up at one of our shows. Letty Schubert, who is our first mentor. She brought us into the Guild and then P of A and Unima. So she showed up and said, there's a lot of people in the Bay Area. And we go, really?
Where the heck are they?
I know. And that was a wonderful connection that we've made friends for our whole lives from. And
is that when you guys joined the Guild initially? Do you remember when that was? What year that was ish?
70.
No, probably early
80-ish.
80s, maybe somewhere around there.
Yeah, really early.
I don't remember how she found us or we found her. We certainly had no idea there was a puppet community.
No.
We didn't think grown-ups did puppet shows. We were just doing it for our own fun. We certainly had no idea that anybody did this for a career. That just didn't enter our mind.
Yeah. But so we found the guild, or they found us, and Crabtree. They weren't Crabtree. They're Crabgrass. Yeah, Crabgrass. Bonnie and Jamie were there, and we were young, struggling puppeteers together, and we'd get together and tell war stories of how all the things that happened, and we inspired each other and critiqued each other, and it was really great. A lot of other people that we met then, Lee Armstrong and Kamala Portager were there, and people who were helpful as well as inspiring.
And so that was sort of I would say the golden age of school tours, where elementary schools had both time and funding to bring out productions. I remember seeing, what was the one up above Seattle that would tour up and down, the Tears of Joy? Yeah, they were doing huge school tours up and down the entire West Coast and some inland states as well. And you guys were a part of that, part of that golden age. So was that your primary audience, was doing large scale elementary schools, or when did you start shifting into, because that was a large part of your career? Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of our career was elementary schools, but we also very early on we started doing bigger shows for larger audiences within maybe the first
couple of years.
Well, yeah. 4 years maybe. Anyway, I think you were right. It was a golden era, and we just hit it just right. We came into it at just the right moment, and we were able to do great big tours and visit all these schools, and then we would also do community shows. We would go into a community and we would do a public show, and in those days we were doing long shows. I mean, they might have been an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes.
For the public ones, they wanted big
we
shows.
were doing full stage, big long shows, and
like for family audiences. I mean, were the kids getting completely stirry, or were they hanging in there? I mean,
oh, come on, Art, we're good.
I mean, I know you're brilliant, but my attention span's about 45 minutes, let alone being a kid.
Well,
so
you're a puppeteer, and we learned that.
We
started performing at Puppet PFA festivals. We realized they're not going to sit there for an hour and a half.
Nope. We're not there for your cutesy intro. Get to the meat. Get to the meat and potatoes.
That's right. And when we do school assemblies, they're usually about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But the public shows, they just sort of wanted this big event, so they weren't happy with a shorter show. But what really facilitated that was the California Arts Council was very supportive in those days, and they had a touring program. So we hit up everywhere from Alturas to San Diego, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and our son grew up on the road with us. We'd be touring probably maybe 1/4 of the time. So he was homeschooled a lot, and then tucked back into his Montessori school when he came back. And
at one point we were on the road about 150 nights a year.
Yeah.
And Benji was always going with you, huh?
Not always, but a lot.
A lot, but a lot of what we accomplished couldn't have happened without a lot of family support. There's our boy. He, as you can see, he's still an extremely creative guy. This was for our grandson's birthday party. And here, this is with a puppet that he won a citation
for this show.
Yeah, when he was 16. Oh, here's, okay. Jumping around.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that one. That's cool.
We included him in these pictures for you because from the point of being able to talk, that kid has been one of our best critics, and He has always been right when he critiques a show.
Yeah, this is him at 2 doing puppets with Jim Henson.
I mean, you got to start it too if you're going to do it with
I
Jim, I
know.
would imagine, right? Yeah.
I know. Yeah, yeah. So there's I'll tell one of my favorite stories about this meeting. These two really loved each other. They had a great time together. Mike was invited to study at Charleville-Mézières, where Jim Henson was doing a course. And Benji was too little for the both of us to go, except I thought nobody's going to go to France without me.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the three of us went, and I was, just being mom, but we were hanging around the edges the most we could. So the very first morning at lunch break, Benji and I come into the room where everybody's all excited to be there, people from all around the world. Everybody's crowded around Jim because, he's so special. And this little guy walks in, this little 2-year-old, and he walks over to a plastic bag with Kermit in it. And he's going for it. And Jim, despite the fact he's got all these people around him, he spots it. He walks right over to it. He gets down, just like in that picture you saw. He's a tall man. He gets down, pulls Kermit out, and says, "We don't let kids see Kermit in a plastic bag." And they proceed to have this wonderful little conversation. And
Kermit and Benji
were talking, and Benji knew that we were really excited to meet Jim Henson. And so he says to Kermit, he says, "Did you know Jim Henson is working you?"
And that was really a moment.
Well, how did Kermit respond to that? I mean,
I don't think Kermit did respond, but the rest of us, there were 20 of us taking the workshop, plus Jim was there and Richard Termini, and anyway, we all just stopped, and then because we all realized we just saw the magic of puppetry happen right there in front of us. It was just that moment when this is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you know Jim Henson is working you? I mean,
wow.
Just very, very secretive. Very, very, very secretive.
Yeah,
what a joy.
A little secretive.
How wonderful for you to get to have that experience. How long into your career did that happen for you guys?
It was pretty early. We actually, a lot of things are measured by Benji's age, because when I got pregnant, and this is Bella.
Hi, Bella.
This is Sadie.
Hi, Sadie.
Yeah, I know my dog's name. When I got pregnant, we realized that we had been coasting along with not a lot of money and a whole lot of fun, but this new person wasn't choosing to be poor the way we were choosing to be poor. And we decided that if we were going to take on raising a kid, we needed to find a way to make a living. So we decided to give ourselves about a year.
One year.
We're going to see if
we can make it into a business.
Yeah. And Michael, really studied business, not what he wanted to do, but he did it. And we started figuring out ways to make it work. And at the end of a year, we still weren't making a living, but we could see that there was a possibility there.
It was going to happen.
It was going to happen, yeah.
But so Benji was born in
84,
and he was 2.
Yeah, so it's like 86.
So 86, and we started in 79.
Yeah.
So it was probably, your business was probably finally plugging along by the time you got to go and do the workshop in France. And how did that influence you when you came back and you were continuing to work on your shows? How did that did that have an impact on your shows? Did that have an impact on you as a performer?
Yeah. There were several really important things for me as a puppet artist about that meeting. And one of them, of course, was meeting Jim and working with Jim and learning from Jim. And he actually was not what I expected, because at that time he was he was a rock star. At that point, he was big. He was making movies. He was Sesame Street, and he was a worldwide phenomenon. And I thought I was going to meet this, powerhouse wheeler dealer, business mogul, puppet mogul, whatever. And he was not like that at all. I mean, he had a lot of business acumen, I'm sure, but he's like a mellow version of Kermit, really down to earth, easygoing, gentle, sincere. I mean, he was like a nice guy. Yeah. And it made me think, okay, you can be a nice guy and still succeed at this. and that was, I don't know, that was kind of major for me, because it's like, do I have to become this something else that I don't want to be in order to be a success at this? And that was like, no, I don't. And the other element of it that was quite eye-opening and amazing to me was working with puppeteers, my peers, people, basically they were all about my age, and from all over the world. There were just people had come in from everywhere to take this class, and meeting these people and working with them, it was just very inspirational and really exciting. So
it can be really lonely being a puppeteer, because I mean, it's not, it's not like being a teacher or anything else where there's, hundreds and hundreds wherever you go. There's not a bunch. That's what I love about the Guild, a San Francisco Bay Area Puppetry Guild, and also Puppeteers of America, is it gives you those opportunities to sort of gather with like-minded people, or people, that are trying to make a living at this and do that.
And the inspiration that the festivals that we have attended or performed at, all of them have had incredible impact and sent us. We've been very curious in our career, and we've tried a lot of different forms of puppetry, and we'll just go off on a tangent and try it. And we've had a lot of fun, and a lot of that inspiration has come from shows that we've seen and stolen. No.
It's certainly inspirational, though, to go and see all of the various styles and to think, oh yeah, I want to try a style like that. Now, I know you guys have some puppets with you. You've got puppets that are about 43 years old from your very first production, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can let's see. Why don't we watch a little clip of that show first, and then we can take a look at the puppets. And what's the name? Will you set this up for us?
So this is the stories of Brer Rabbit.
Perfect.
Mike grew up or started his life in the South, so these are stories he heard as a child.
All right, let's take a look.
Sure, you make a great scarecrow. Now, wouldn't he make a good scarecrow? Yeah!
Oh boy! Well, what do I have to do?
Well, you just loosen me down and the job is yours.
All right, Brer Rabbit, you've got a deal. Oh boy, $1 a minute. Wait till the missus hear about this. Yeah.
Yes.
She gonna be surprised. She always says I don't have much sense. This'll show her.
Yes, it will.
So Brer Ball helped Brer Rabbit down out the tree, and Brer Rabbit helped Brer Ball up in the tree.
Are you ready?
Oh, I'm always ready to make $1 a minute.
All right, here we go.
Whoa! Oh my goodness!
There you are, making $1 a minute.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing. Having a job sure changed your perspective on life.
So that's when I've seen your shows, or when I saw your shows. I think we were talking. I saw the very first show that I saw of yours was at a festival in Asilomar, and it was the Flags of, what was the name
It's a
of
Bear Flag show.
Bear Flag Show.
the Bear Flag Show? And it was tabletop. It was large scale puppets. It was similar in style to this. And I think I've seen Animalitos as well. And it was also this kind of like large. So would you travel with the tables, or would you use the tables on site, or like how do these shows work?
Okay, so that I told you already the story of the first stage, so we learned not too heavy. So I started to make my own cases, and the cases were the structure of the staging.
Yeah.
So the whole we actually had this great story. This fellow set up a tour of Scotland for us. He was a manager of several puppet companies in Scotland, and he brought us over to tour in Scotland. And we went with our show. And at one point, he made his other performers come in and look at our show, the setup, because he had to rent a huge truck every time they went out. And ours is, we just learned how to
We
make
could fit
it.
in one of those British taxis, so.
We could make it look big, but it wasn't, we designed everything to travel, to be the airline, travel as regular luggage on the airline. And it made it light, we would take, one of our big full stage shows would be about 125 or 130 pounds.
So here's Brer Rabbit, and he's, as I said, he's been around 40 plus years. And one of the things we did to make him fit in the suitcase is we took out his tummy stuffing and put in a beach ball, which impressed our Scottish sponsor a lot. So that's, and I just remembered we were just getting started. We'd only done 1 or 2 shows, and we heard about the festival in Washington, D.C. And
that was an amazing festival. That was 1980, wasn't it?
yes, and
Yeah.
we could afford to go there.
Well, we didn't even know.
We heard about it soon enough after that we saw a recording on television. I don't know who put that on, but I remember seeing it.
PBS or something.
And we were stunned by the diversity and just totally exciting. And we saw somebody doing tabletop puppetry.
Do you remember what show it was offhand? That was, yeah.
No. But
If you know type in the comments if you're a puppet aficionado, if you were at the 1980 festival and there was a tabletop show and you remember, type it into the comments. And if you have any questions for Mike or Valerie, type those in the comments as well.
And what we were excited about with that was the large scale. You can do a full assembly of kids. And with Brer Rabbit stories, the teller is as important as the character. And so we didn't want to be masked. We didn't want to hood it, or we wanted to move in and out of being the teller and the puppeteer. And so that was a style that we were comfortable with from the beginning. And it was actually pretty controversial when we were getting started. There was a whole lot of, you should not be emoting kind of.
Well, within the puppet community.
Yeah.
Our audiences thought it was great.
Yeah.
Because, what we were doing that was, I remember we performed at the festival at MIT, and there was a big amount of discussion about, if the puppeteer's face is visible, it should remain completely neutral. And our approach was, we put the emotions of the puppet onto our face and allow that to become a unit. So that we're actually adding to what's going on with the puppet. But there were some that's like, no, it's got to be completely neutral. You can't show anything on your face. And we were new at this. We were like, well, gosh, these people know what they're talking about. But our audiences at home constantly tell us how much they enjoy seeing the emotions of the puppet mirrored on our face. So
we sort of decided that, that may be right for them, but it's not right for us. And also, because I'd worked so much with very young children, basically the way we perform is very similar to how children play.
Yeah. With stuffed animals Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a more natural for me and for us, a more natural way to approach the storytelling. What I don't ever want to do is sort of like put the puppet aside, make sure you're looking at me. That's the difference. If you're focusing and channeling your energy into that puppet, then you're not a distraction for most of our audience.
And the other thing that happened was over the years, other puppeteers, I don't know, I'm not saying they were, influenced by us, but other puppeteers also started showing the emotions of the puppets on their faces when their faces were visible. And it became really much more common to see that than to see this neutral face. But we were at this sort of cusp of a change of approach.
Yeah.
Well, there was also a time too where you couldn't mix glove style puppets with rod puppets or moving mouth puppets with glove puppets, because there was like, it's the purity of the form. And I love that I entered into several years after you guys started, but entered into sort of a more open world of like, what's going to work best in this story. And I don't have to be, shackled to tradition. Tradition is lovely and it can be very informative, but I don't have to be shackled to it. I can see what best informs this piece of theater, what kind of puppetry.
Exactly. How to tell the story. And that's, for us, story is first.
Yeah.
How can we tell that story the best way?
And every storyteller has told a story to their audience. They like know who they're telling to, and they tailor it to that audience. That's what a storyteller does.
Yeah. Picksmith gave me the best advice. I was performing at a national festival and I was nervous about performing in front of my peers. And he pulled me aside and he said, listen, none of these people are ever going to book you, so don't worry about them. that was absolutely true. Hey, Carol Sterling has a question for us. She asks, can you share one of the most challenging experiences you've had, as well as one of the most gratifying experiences that you've had?
Yes.
It's a great question, Carol. Hi, Carol. Good to have you here with us.
Okay, my choice for that would be, we were touring in Thailand, and through a friend of Cami Condon's, we were invited to visit a refugee camp. And
to perform at a
refugee camp. And these were children who were on the list to eventually make it to the United States. So it was an incredible opportunity and privilege, because they were basically in a locked camp. They couldn't get in.
It was like a prison. And these are refugees left from they were tribal people left over after the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And we went in there with our little son. I think he was in second grade at that point. And they we saw that they had these little tiny little classrooms made out of bamboo, and these gorgeous little children that were there. And we walked in, and there was Clifford the dog and American ABCs, and it was this weird juxtaposition. And then we went in to perform, and they had this space that again was built from bundles of bamboo, and it was really hot and really humid. And it was probably an hour and a half before the performance they started bringing people in. So they brought in
hundreds of people,
all the old people, and they brought in all the babies, and then they disappeared. I was like, oh my gosh, why are they here now? We're going to wear out all their patients before we even get this, ready to go. And so that was, it just kept filling up. And then we were doing it in Thai.
We were performing in
English.
English and Thai.
We had memorized the Thai, but
wow.
But they didn't really speak Thai.
They spoke Hmong and
Min,
and they decided that they were going to simultaneously translate us.
Oh no.
At least two other languages. I'm not sure if there were more, because we had no idea what they were saying. And their mics were much louder than ours. And it was really quite distracting.
Yeah.
That was a very challenging show.
That's the most bizarre echo you've ever had, right?
It was so hard. But on the other hand, they were so appreciative. They were the sweetest. And we went home, and Benji's classmates had written letters to the children before he went. Welcome to the United States. This is what you can expect. And so the teacher was saying, these kids have never had a sandwich. We have to have a sandwich party. You know? And there was this nice little exchange a few times between his classmates and the children there.
Wow.
So that
Nice.
that was a really nice
So
experience.
that was a
Carol.
very challenging performance. We have lots of challenging ones, but you had two questions there.
Yeah. What was most do you have a most gratifying or a very gratifying experience?
I think that one kind of hit both.
Yeah, that hits both, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Gratifying.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's always been fun to succeed at something. That's very gratifying. You know, as puppeteers, we work very hard. We put together a show, and then when the show succeeds, it's always very gratifying. And you know, so that's been something that we've had, as other puppeteers have, over and over. You know, you just work really hard, and when you put on a performance, you're also working hard. You're connecting with your audience as best as you can,
and you know, I gotta say, we've been teaching in a school in Napa, Willow Elementary. It's an arts integrated school for a number of years now, and I that's some of the most gratifying work that we do for me. That to see the children grow, to see them get excited and confident, and it's really a lot of fun.
So, and to explain what that is it's an arts magnet elementary school, and we're not credentialed teachers. We are artists, and we're brought in as artists to teach puppetry and drama and music. I mean, and visual arts. I mean, puppetry has all of that. So we do whatever we want, really. We go.
And are you guys there for the entire school year, coming in like once a week or something, or like how does it?
2 days a week, yeah.
Wow.
We work with each grade for like 11 or 12 weeks. And at the end of that, they have created something or performed something with us.
Neat.
So we meet them every week for about an hour.
How cool to get to know them over that period of time. And
it's really great.
Yeah, nice. Well, the name of the program is Meet Our Mentors, so we'd better talk about a few more mentors before we run out of time completely. So, can you talk to me a little bit about some of the people that have influenced you and helped you along the way? I know we already talked about Crabgrass. Who else?
Well, let's start at the very beginning. Not a puppeteer, but a sculptor, and even really kind of before I started doing puppetry. There was this an artist in our community named Joe Query, and a friend of ours told us about this artist who was doing some kind of mystical drawings of people. He would take have the person sit, and he would go into kind of a trance and draw these pictures of them that were with colors all around. They were not photorealistic at all. There would be colors all around, and then he was learning to interpret the pictures and interpret what the different colors meant about that person or whatever. And so our friend asked, would we go and sit for him just so that he could have subjects to work on, and it was. No money was exchanged. It was just we would sit. He'd draw it. He'd keep the picture. He'd learn what he learned from it, and we just have the fun of seeing whatever he did. So I went there, and he did my picture. And there was this sort of teal, blue-green all around it. And he said when he was done, he was interpreting it. He said that was the picture. That was the color of pure art, and he had never seen it in that amount at all before for anyone. And I'm like, I'm a cabinet maker, I'm a furniture maker, I'm not an artist. But that's
so not my impression of you. I mean, like, as long as I've known you, seeing you get fascinated by something that you're making or something that you're building, or like, and your desire to share, here's what I've been working on, like that makes complete sense to me now. Yeah.
So So what happened then was, this is when I was just beginning to make puppets, and he said that he wanted to invite me to come study with him, to apprentice to him.
Yeah.
And my thought then was, well, I'll learn how to sculpt so I can make puppets, but that was really right at the very beginning. And if he, frankly, if he hadn't come to me with this, whatever New Age or whatever it was,
We were the hippies.
this occult colored picture of me and said, you have all this art all around you, I may not have ever done puppets. I might have, been a great cabinet maker.
Talk about the power of a mentor, of someone who will turn to you and say, you can do this, you should do this. I had a similar, very less new agey, but I had a choir teacher who wrote a pass so that I could get into his choir. He said, she can sing. And it's like, I just took that to heart. And, so I believed him. I'm going to tell a story about another mentor. Two of them, Chris and Steve Carter, the Carter family puppets.
Certainly inspirations.
So I went to school with them. They were
Really? What school?
Napa High. They were
Really? I had no idea.
and Steve's parents were friends with mine, and so I've known him his whole life. And so when we went to our very first National Puppet Festival in San Luis Obispo, we arrived, and I think by the first day and a half, we were like ready to pack our bags. We're like,
yeah, we were a little bit like, are these our people?
Like, who are these weirdos?
The shows, and again, this was a time when there's a huge transitional change there, and some of the old school shows were happening, and we were thinking, well, this is fine, but this is not what I want to do, but we got to stay because Steve and Chris are going to perform, and so we got to at least stay through their show. So
we were really thinking we'd see their show and
then go,
leave halfway through the festival.
But they were performing, and we were walking up to the stage, and Chris was out there with an accordion, and she was playing along, and I walked up and said, Chris, I didn't know you could play that accordion. And she says, well, I just learned to play, so, for the show. And it was like, ding.
Uh-huh.
And then we went in. It was such a good show.
We stayed the rest of the festival.
Yeah.
You remember what show they did? Do you remember what show it was that you saw?
I think it was
it
was the Casperell.
Casperell.
The Casperell show.
Yeah. Oh, and it was
or the Yellow
the other
Dwarf.
couple. They were
Theater Picaro.
Theater Picaro, yeah. And then also Kathy Foley was performing, or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy with a gamelan orchestra. And she did the rock.
Yeah, so there was some
outside.
real magic going on.
Is that when you guys started bringing in instruments to your shows then? Is that what?
Well,
we always did.
We started off the Brer Rabbit, which was our first show of the style that we did for 40 something years. That one, I already was playing the banjo in that one. But what the Carter show did was it said to me, like, you're going to learn to play any instrument you want for the show. And so, every time for a while, we were like, well, what instruments can we put in this show? Well, we find the cultural instruments and learn how to play them.
Or at least enough to play in the show, right? I mean, that's it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we feel really strongly that shows are better with live music. It's just, we have more fun with live music. So that's always been an element of our show. And we really like I think puppetry is a folk art, and the music should be small and folk that way. I don't know if I'm expressing myself well, but I think it matches to have a folk song with a puppet show and that kind of straightforward music. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, of course, we mentioned Letty Schubert, who introduced us to the Bay Area puppetry. She was definitely a great influence, and especially I told you about the MIT show where we took a lot of hits for showing our expression, and I remember, but George Latshaw and Nancy Staub were really supportive. They were great. I mean, over the years they were as well, but at that particular moment, which was, new puppeteers coming in and being introduced to to the world of P of A, which I think has mellowed a lot over the years. There was a time when you went to a P of A meeting, you expected fights. But anyway, I remember George coming up to me after the show, and we've been getting these sort of comments, and George came up and he said, "You're a very funny fellow." And I thought, "Hey, thanks, George." And then, he and Nancy sat down and talked with us about, helping us to sort of see where people were coming from. And he was always very supportive, as Nancy was as well, especially in those early years. And Allie Lou Curtin also
huge.
Was very supportive.
Yeah.
She was the one who actually said that I should apply to the to Charleville Mézières, to the workshop with Jim Henson.
And none of them wouldn't be critical either. They just had a lovely way of communicating their critique, and in such a supportive way. I mean, I got to work a little bit with George Latshaw at the O'Neill, and I felt like just grandfathered by him. I just felt so loved and cared for and supported and I was in such a vulnerable place at the beginning of my career, and it was just amazing.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, exactly. And I think that is more what the puppet community is like than not. I've just, and that is why I've stayed really connected with the guild, because I feel it's the kind of the portal. It's where people, go when they're trying to find their tribe. They're trying, and there's been some incredible connections made that way. In fact, I think that Frank Oz met Jim Henson at a festival and got hired, I think. So, these things happen. But
And then another really kind of stepping stone for us, who was someone who was very supportive of us, was John Wright of the Little Angel Theatre in London, who only took us on. He booked us for, I think, a weekend in his theater.
There he is.
Very early on, and it was only because Letty Schubert told him that we were worth it. When at first he was kind of like, "Well, I don't know them, I don't want to take the chance," and that's really what everyone said in the beginning. But he was our first international venue. And then he said, "Well, we'll just do it for the weekend." So we did it for the weekend, and then after that, he had us back.
Nice.
And we became, friends, and he and that got us our tour of India, because this Indian troupe wanted Little Angel Theatre to go tour in India. And I think John really didn't want to do it.
Send the Nelsons.
Yeah, he did. He said, "Oh, you really ought to come see the Nelson show." And they came, and then they hired us. But, it's like getting that first one. A lot of, we've performed in, I think, 18 different countries and in 8 different languages, something like that. But it was the first one was the hardest one.
Yes.
But I will say this, we did put down on our list of mentors also Fumiko Matsuzawa, who had us, she and Uno-san brought us over to Japan for, I think, 4 tours maybe.
I think so, yeah.
But one of the things, and that was also very supportive and very encouraging for us. And
how would you have someone translate those shows live as you were doing them, or?
No, we did them in Japanese.
Really?
Yes, and we even sang in Japanese.
Oh boy.
Uh,
We had crib
Can you
notes.
do a little bit of that for us now?
Minasan wa konnichiwa.
Well done. Well done. Bravo.
But one of the things that I think really affected our work from doing international shows, especially ones that were not in English, the first, it may have been the Japanese, might have been the first one, because they saw us at the MIT festival.
Yes.
And invited us to Japan from there. And what we did was, to prepare our shows for going overseas, we kind of rewrote them. We took out as much language as we possibly could, because we were going to have to be learning it in Japanese. And the fewer things we said, the better. And what that did was it really improved our shows. We
Oh yeah,
realized,
we are relying more on movement and action rather than blah blah blah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
so like every show that we took to Japan, or to wherever we took it, when we brought it back, it was different from then on.
Right.
And then we started to think like that and approach our shows like that. So kind of a mentor and kind of just an experience that really influenced the way we did it. And we were watching your interview with Bonnie and Jamie, and they were saying how they never, they don't write a script. They build a show first. And that's always been the way we did it.
Too. Yeah.
We
Make all the characters and then
we're actually rehearsing before we know the words.
Yeah.
Because the words aren't what we're doing. It's the movement.
Yeah.
And just like they were saying, if you can say it without the words, the words are either just icing on the cake or you don't need them.
And I find when I'm writing a script, you're using language, you're using the word, and I'm using too many because I'm writing the script as opposed to having a sketch and going in and seeing, what needs to be said here, what doesn't need to be said here. Yeah.
And Bonnie, we are soulmates. So Bonnie also said, you have this idea of what the puppet's supposed to do, but then when you start rehearsing, you see what it wants to do. And that is totally one of the things that we've discovered. And you have to play with it. You have to give it its due and find out what it can do. One of the, I keep going back to them, but we made a huge mistake. It turned into a wonderful success, but it was, we took on we agreed to do a show for what's the Boston what's the name of their
the puppet
Show place?
puppet show place, yeah. So and like complete fools, we decided to bring a new show. So
and we should preface this is late in our career.
yeah.
This was like,
Well, that's when you start getting a little cocky, right? I mean, you think, we'll just do it there. We can.
I know, but we had been playing with this idea for ages, and it was we wanted to do a story with a title that people could actually recognize and might come to, because that's really not what we've ever done. And we wanted to move into library shows because the big assembly shows were drying up. So we wanted to build a smaller show, and we wanted to build it for a slightly younger age. And we thought, well, what about Goldilocks? And I hated Goldilocks when I was a little kid. It was this little girl who went into other people's houses, and she was bad.
She's such a brat, right? I mean, yeah.
It totally freaked me out. So we were walking, not Sadie, but Bella. This dog. We were walking her along and talking about these shows, and I thought, what if it was a cute little puppy that went into somebody's house instead of a little girl? And I'm getting there. And that was the kernel. That was the kernel of our show. And we built these puppets out of Salvation Army sweaters, and inspired by Monica's Leo's designs. Although Michael's
Sort of a Czech marionette type of puppet, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So we just had so much fun with that. But the disaster was about 3 weeks out from when we were supposed to have the show ready. We were finally rehearsing it, and
might have been less than 3
it might have been not long enough. And we realized that the Goldilocks story was about 10 minutes long.
Well, 20.
Yeah, it wasn't long enough. And we were like, we have really blown it. We had like a couple of days of complete panic.
Filler.
We were like, okay, Papa Bear is forgetting something and he's going to go back and get it. And then he'll go back and get something else. And then I forget who came up with the brilliant idea was that the three bears were going to the circus. So we put a whole middle section of the show of the circus. And Michael built all these trick puppets
Marionettes.
very rapidly.
And so I'm going to get myself in trouble with some with the marionettist, but and by the way, these are marionettes we're talking about. We were doing marionettes, but I've always sort of thought, oh, marionette variety shows. That's just not
A low form of puppet theater, as some people say.
This will say that.
Yeah,
Marionette variety shows and give you this expression, and you can make up your minds what I'm thinking about. But
And here you are, finally going on the dark side.
so many people are mad at us.
So I thought we're it's the end of our career, and we'll never see you guys again. So we and the puppets, the three bears were teddy bears in our story, and I have a funny story about that too. But so then I thought, well, what if it was a circus of teddy bears doing acts? Of course, they can't do anything because they're just like their arms stick up and and this is going to be the humorous element of it, is that every act will be them not being able to do it. And then I started building them and they could do it. And it was great. And I'm like,
The whole premise is out the window.
I get it. Marionette variety show. This is
They
wonderful.
were so much fun, and the kids.
We're hooked.
Yeah, we totally sold. So here is Puppy Locks, and there's Sadie in the background. Sadie, do you recognize? She does.
there is a similarity there for sure.
Yeah.
Checking it out.
Hi, baby.
And so in these, I've seen Puppy Locks, and you are still exposed as the puppeteers. You're just above more than behind in some of your larger shows, and you have little set pieces that are moving around. And the table, I would say you were about a third of the width of some of your larger shows in this one, right?
It's a smaller show. It's lighter. It sets up in
It's easier on our
minutes.
aging bodies and.
So a real quick story was one very early puppet festival, and this fits in because as anyone who's gone to a P of A festival knows, you're taking workshops from all these people, and they are mentoring. You know, you're learning things, and you're taking a variety, and you don't necessarily know what what the workshop will be. So we ended up taking. Did you take it with me?
The Robert Poulter?
No, the Cedar Quest.
Oh, that was so long ago.
Anyway, really long time ago. I don't know if we both went or just I went, but I went to this workshop. This elderly couple,
Probably our
the
age.
Cedar Quest, they had done a Beatrix Potter show where she had knit or crocheted all the puppets. They were so cute and precious, and I thought, that is so nice. We will never do anything like that. So go back to that picture of Puppy Locks, because now this was our first cute show. We did not do cute.
This is the cutesiest show I've ever seen. I mean, like, bright colors and cutesy McCuteserson is written all over the show, and that represents none of your other shows, which is really fun though to see that you've finally gone to variety marionettes and cutesy puppets. You guys are really going on the dark side.
I think it might have to do with being grandparents.
And check out, we did not knit or crochet these, but they are made of sweaters, so they are knitted. It's just like the Cedar Quest.
It's the circle of life, Michael. It's the circle of life.
I guess it is.
Well,
Anyway.
I love you two both. You guys have always been so generous and helpful with me and the work that I do, and I appreciate. I don't always like your advice, Michael, but I do listen to it, and most of the time, damn it, you're right, and I hate that. And it's
That's
and
why-
and I but I really appreciate you sharing it because that's how I grow. That's how we all grow. And so I'm just so glad you guys are a part of the community here in Northern California. What's next for you guys? You're teaching the workshops. You're still performing here and there a little bit. What's
We
where
are
are you heading?
We're just starting on the first show that we're building since the pandemic, or since before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I know all these puppeteers said, "Oh, during the pandemic, we'll make new shows because we have all this time," and we're like, I don't know if we'll ever get to perform them. This could be the end of civilization as we know it.
You're out in the backyard digging a bunker instead of building puppets. I see. All right.
We were growing food, so we wouldn't have to go to the grocery store.
Getting your sourdough starter going and everything. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Anyway, so we're now building a new story. We just yesterday agreed to do it at a festival in Germany next September. So we have a deadline.
Yeah.
And
It's paper theater, so it's
paper
another
theater,
one of our loves.
Crankies,
Yeah.
live music, and it's going to be basically kind of cowboy themed.
Yeah. Cowboy music.
Cowboy, we're doing the, I think we called it, we just literally yesterday we're making all this up. So we gave it a name, which is the Buffalo Gals Wild West Review.
I
So
can't
that's
wait to
That's
see
our
it.
next show.
Good. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on another episode of Meet Our Mentors. Next month, I believe we've got Aretta from, the Atlanta. Thank you, that place. So come join us for that. Michael and Valerie, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next month. Bye, everyone.
Bye.